Hi, I'm Kat Miller. Welcome to a very special episode of Passionate Living. As many of you have heard in the news recently, actor Richard Roundtree, most well known for his role as Shaft, passed away in his West Hollywood home at the age of 81. To me, Richard was a sacred friend, and we shared many laughs and a few tears throughout the years of knowing each other. Tonight, I'd like to share a glimpse of Richard's amazing spirit with you and take a walk through some of the highlights of his extraordinary career. As well, you may have viewed a tribute show that we aired in May of 2022 after the Top shooting here in Buffalo, New York. During that episode, Richard made a rare appearance speaking to this heartbreaking event. This evening, we're going to share an extended version of his powerful interview, and his words will no doubt move you deeply. So sit back and enjoy our tribute to the very charming and talented Richard Roundtree. Richard grew up in New Rochelle, New York, and in high school he played football, earning him a scholarship to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Eventually, Richard moved back to New York City and took a job at Barney's, a high-end men's clothing store. Some of his colleagues were getting side work as models, so Richard decided to give it a try, with some immediate success. But then he took things a step further and jumped into the world of acting, where he was given his first big break by director Gordon Parks, who casted him in the role of Detective John Shaft. Richard told me that when he showed up for his interview that day with Gordon Parks for a really coveted role that actors from all around the country were coming in to try out for Shaft, Richard thought that he would use a little bit of leverage and tell Gordon Parks, the director, that his brother went to school with Gordon's son. Richard told me that you had to know Gordon Parks to know just how much that meant nothing to him. And in the middle of the interview, Gordon took a piece of paper, it was a cutting out of a magazine, and pushed it toward Richard and said, "I want somebody who looks like him." Richard picked up the page of the magazine and looked at it, and it was an ad that he had done as a model. And he said, "That's me." And Gordon said, And he handed it back to him. And then he got called back for a second time. And for this time, he had to do his screen test. Well, he got on camera, and he thought this character of Shaft would be really cool, and he probably smoked. It was the 70s. So Richard did all of his screen test with a cigarette, and then the AD said, "We need to come in for the close-up." And Richard said, "Yeah?" He said, "You have to do all the same moves you just did a moment ago with a cigarette in your hand and everything that you had done." And Richard was shocked and panicked. And he said it changed his whole acting career in that moment, because never again did he do a film where in the initial scene he wasn't thinking about how he was going to repeat it when they came in for the close-up. So lo and behold, Richard got a call in his service, and it was from Gordon Parks' office, and he thought, all these other great actors came in, and I probably didn't get the part, and Gordon's just going to let me down, nicely. So he called back the office, they put him through to Gordon, and he said, "Well, kid," and Richard's heart kind of sunk to his stomach. He said, "It looks like you got the part." Richard said he was in a phone booth in New York, and he wanted to explode. And he was so excited, and Gordon said, "Now the only thing is you can't tell anybody, because we're going to do a big rollout of this at Sardi's in New York, and you can't tell anyone for the next several months." And Richard's like, "No one?" He said, "Can I tell my mom?" And he said, "Yeah, you can tell your family, that's okay." And that was the beginning of a whole new career.
And I walked out up those steps, and I can remember it was like yesterday, and I started to cross the street against the traffic, and midway through, this cab's honking its horn, and I turned around, I gave him the finger, and kept walking. Because I did own it at that moment.
Yeah.
And crossed it and got to the center and started walking past it, and I could hear, cut! And I go and said, let's do it one more time for safety. But we had it in the first take.
Yeah. Richard had no idea at the time just how important playing the role of John Shaft would be in paving the way for African American actors. His portrayal of Shaft as a cool, confident, charismatic detective was groundbreaking in Hollywood. Once he told me that he was the first black man to appear on the big screen with a mustache. In subsequent years, he appeared in a plethora of films and television shows. Last year, after the shooting of the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York, Richard called me in tears. He agreed to be part of a special edition of Passionate Living where we honor the victims and their loved ones of this terrible tragedy. Due to the half-hour length of our show, we were only able to air a portion of his powerful words, and tonight we're going to share more of that extended version of his interview with you. I'm here with my dear friend, Richard Roundtree, who many of you know through his lengthy, amazing career from Shaft to Mad Friday to the show that he's on now, Family Reunion. And the other night, after the tragedy in Buffalo, shared his heart with me about what was going on, and it touched me so much that I encouraged him to come today onto this very sacred episode and just share a little of his heart and wisdom with us today. Thanks for joining, Richard.
Kat, that was a very, very raw conversation we had. And I don't get that raw, that naked publicly.
Yeah.
And when you suggested this to me, that I do this on camera,
I know you do not like interviews.
That was a steep hill to climb. There is so much emotion that are turning over in my being about where we are today. There is so much anger and so much disappointment about man's inhumanity to man.
Yes.
And how we can say one thing and totally do the opposite to our fellow man. January 6th was a gathering of patriots. Patriotic to what? When the vice president life was threatened and they had nooses hanging. They wanted to hang him. That was a peaceful patriots gathering. Give me a... We have gone back to the 40s, if not the 30s. We are being fed stuff that we're supposed to swallow. And too many of us have our heads in the sand. It's unconscionable.
It is. And my grandpa used to have a saying. And yesterday when I was over at the Tops Market where the shooting took place, he used to say that if you see something happen on the street in life and you just walk by, like say someone's getting mugged or somebody's having a fight and you don't want to get involved, and you just walk by and you do nothing, that you become part of the problem. By not being involved, you're involved. And I think that is the big thing for everybody that's sitting, watching their television sets, oh, another tragedy. And we watch so intently, we may feel emotional. And then that passes. And it's like it's in the back of our minds. It's not there anymore in the present.
Well, the main reason I'm doing this is what you shared with me a few minutes ago, your uncomfort being questioned, being a white woman in this situation. And I said, oh my God, how can I? How can I not speak out? If you can do that, I have no excuse.
Thank you.
I have had a privileged life. I have traveled all over the world. And been in some strange situations. But I have never experienced the feelings I have today about this place I call my home, this country. No, you didn't see, you didn't see that. That wasn't true. I didn't say that, and it's on tape. The denial of this racist mentality that was going on in this country, taking away the vote, which constitutionally says that we have the right to vote. No, you don't. We will draw the lines and make it impossible for you to vote. Take away the voting boxes so you can't do mail-in. What is going on here?
Yesterday, I got to interview our mayor, Byron Brown. And I gotta say, he is holding this together so remarkably well. A city that's so fractured right now, a community
of people so fractured, and his heart is holding this together. And, you know, we talked about generational racism. And I believe it's so important that in schools we have to have these conversations in schools, because if someone's being raised in a household of generational hate that's been carried forward, children don't. You see kids on a playground. You and I both have kids, and how many times have you been to the playground where by the end of the day they're hugging the kid that they just played with, and they're like, oh, this is my best friend, and they've never met before, but it's just a little love fest, and they don't care what that child's race is, they don't care their religion, they don't care their sex, they just have a new friend that they love. We learn to hate. When I first moved back to town from California, and Rosina was younger, and we'd walk down the street in some areas of town, especially some suburb areas, and we'd hold hands through the store. And the looks I would get from some people made me want to cry. I'm like, this is a little girl, and looking at me like somehow I sold out my white skin or something. You know what I mean by having this little girl that they're assuming is my daughter. And I'm like, God, did I walk through a time portal into the 1950s? And I mean, this is not the majority, and I don't want to put that out there, because when Rosina and I did the marches, the Black Rights, Lives Matter marches, what gave me hope is that the majority of the people in the marches were young, and they were white. They were light-skinned. And I thought, oh my God, maybe this next generation, maybe there's hope.
Well, it's difficult to navigate that disparity. In my day-to-day working relationships, and then I can leave the set and go into a market. The script is flipped momentarily. This is the real world. And when I close the door, yeah, this is real, but it flips.
Yeah.
So suddenly, moment to moment out there.
Yeah, it's why we can't give up hope. I loved what Byron Brown said yesterday when he said, hate turns people into pure evil. He said, love is the answer. Those were the final words of his interview that we did. Love is the answer. Love is what can change this. It's not going to be hate. And I cried. I walked away and I cried. Here's a black mayor in the middle of this tragedy, who loves his city, who is loyal to the people here and loyal to his community. And that moved me. I walked away and I held that in my heart. So, I don't know.
I have
Now, as humans, hate isn't helping us a whole lot.
a thing here.
Yeah. Oh.
This man, on the insignificant actions of someone else, don't allow others to control the direction of your life. It is so deep. And it speaks to a lot of things that I would love to adopt in my life in these dark moments. And it's difficult. When he, being the mayor, said love will conquer all, in essence, what he's saying is love will conquer all, it will conquer over. It is incredibly difficult to take that stance in these dark moments. I wish I could buy into that wholeheartedly. I really wish I could. I intellectually understand that, but emotionally, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for talking today and sharing. I know how hard this was for you. I know you do not like.
I need to take a nap. I'm drained.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, Kat. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
On a lighter note, last year when Richard turned 80, his daughter Kelly threw him a beautiful party, and it was attended by so many of Richard's friends and family. He left a message for me a few days later saying it was one of the best nights of his entire life. And according to his longtime manager, Patrick McMinn, just a day before his death, Richard was out smoking cigars with some close friends, so he lived his life fully, right up to the end. Thank you for joining me this evening in honoring a beautiful man who lived his passion and used it to influence the lives of so many others in a profound way. And Richard, I'm sure by now you have figured out how to procure a big screen TV up there in the heavens. And if you're watching, no doubt you're smoking a fine Cuban cigar. And just know that I'm one of many who love and miss you dearly.